And hi everybody, and welcome to Ukraine Beyond the Headlines. And welcome to all the Shilly babies in the audience. I'm so happy to see you all here. For those of you who might be new to joining us, I'm also known as CF Beauty. So today on our show, we have two awesome guests, Alina and Martha. Martha is actually a Ukrainian refugee organizer.
I am.
No, I didn't finish my sentence. Dick, I have a horrible echo in my headphones. Hang on one second. Maybe it's the stream. Nope, it's not the stream. Okay. So hopefully we can get that straightened out. There we go. So Martha is actually an organizer for Ukrainian refugees, and she brings them to the United States. And Alina is our refugee family who came to the United States a little over a year and a half ago. So everybody knows that the conflict in Ukraine has displaced so many people. There's over 3.6 million people that have been displaced within Ukraine, and there's more than 6 million that actually have had to go abroad to different countries. Martha has been integral in bringing over 180 families. Oh, what's your number, Martha?
140.
140 wow. 140 families to the United States. So I was lucky enough to meet Martha by Googling. I found her in a newspaper article from my state, which is Iowa, and I found her on Facebook. They did a wonderful article about her work in Iowa and bringing families to Iowa. And I was lucky enough, she answered me. So let's go to Martha. If you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Alina to introduce yourself.
Okay. My name's Martha Holzhoff. I don't know. I feel like I'm nobody. I'm a child of God, right? So whatever God asks me to do is what I do. My sister, how this got started more for me is my sister is a missionary in Ukraine. The first time she went to Ukraine was in 1997. And she's been there pretty much nonstop full time. She's married a pastor from Ukraine, and they have 2 biological children and 4 adopted children. And so when the war started, or maybe I should not go into that right now. That's just who I am. I am just like I said, just a person who wants to serve God. I want to be Jesus' hands and feet. So if this is how God calls me to be used, this is what I do. So
That's amazing. Alina, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Alina. I am Ukrainian. For now, it's been 1.5 years as I'm in US as a refugee with the Uniting for Ukraine program. And I'm very honored to be invited, and thank you for the opportunity to share my story. We'll be glad to do that.
Thank you for being here. One of the goals of our show is to win hearts and minds of the people out there and raise awareness about the situation in Ukraine on every level, about the war, what they need, about humanitarian things and what people need, and just keep everything as top of mind as we can for people. So I have a series of questions here for my guests. I have a feeling we won't get to everything, but the biggest thing is I want basically to have a great conversation with you about your experiences before the war, during the war, and what the future looks like for you. So Alina, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you actually before the invasion, about what your life was?
Yes, sure. I was born in Ukraine. I have all my family back in Ukraine. I grew up in one city, which is at the central eastern part of the country. The name is Poltava. I grew up there. I got married there in 2016. Then I gave birth to my children in Poltava there. And 5 months before the full invasion in 2022, in October, we moved, in November, actually, we moved to Irpin, which is near the capital of Ukraine, near Kiev. And we wanted to start a new life, kind of, just because Poltava city is a small city comparing to the capital. So we wanted to try challenge ourselves with growing in all spheres of our life. And basically with kids, we moved and started a new beginning 5 months before the full invasion. Then in January, which is 2022, 1 month before Russia invaded fully the country, I had a surgery in Mariupol, and it was miraculously for me time frames, because as soon as I got back to Irpin and was restored a little bit, we've got those news that horrible morning, which we've heard gossips about, and we knew something might happen, but we would never think it will be what it is now. So basically before the war, we were working, both me and my husband, we got married, just got kids, and just the whole life was in front of us, new beginning and short end.
Wow, it's amazing how quickly things can change for everybody's life. So Martha, what was your life before you started working with Ukrainian refugees?
My life is just a typical life. I mean, my husband and I, we farm. I do a few different jobs. I do daycare, and I raise my own children. I have 6 children six live children, I should say. I have some in heaven already. But it was just, my sister's in Ukraine, so I would talk to her, but not like now. Now I talk to her pretty much every single day. When the war started, yeah, there's different ways we talk, and it's secure and safe. But now we're a lot closer and trying to help each other out more.
We'll get into that a little bit more. Martha actually has a sister who is volunteering in Ukraine, who is a missionary, and she's been integral in making a lot of the connections that Martha has with the families. Martha, I was telling Martha before the stream about my my YouTube name, and everybody thinks it's kind of funny that CF is the abbreviation. She thought it was funny. It stands for corn fed, because we're here in Iowa, and the fact that she and her husband, are farmers, it just sort. This was like meant to be. I'm so happy I met you. So, Alina, we know what your life was before the invasion. Can you tell us what happened with the invasion and what your experiences were? And please only tell us information that you're comfortable giving.
We do remember that morning. I think every Ukrainian has this as a horror dream, but staying so tightly with our memories, because that morning we woke up just getting ready with kids for the kindergarten, preschool, basically. I was dressing them up when my husband opened the phone, and he's like, it has started. So we understood what he's talking about pretty fast. And then that moment, it is like, you stop like in your whole life for a second, but it seems like it's an eternity, because you do not understand and realize what does it mean, how it will look like, and just what should you do. And everything, basically the message we've got from our teachers from the preschool, and they said like the kindergarten is not working today because of the events in the country. So we realized what type of the events are those, just with no mention, and we knew exactly what it was. Before that day, we've heard those gossips about might be the war. Me and my husband will never think it will go to the central part of Ukraine or to further parts of Ukraine. As you know, since 2014, events were going on at the east of the country, and the war was already there. So we thought might be something more serious or more intense happening there. But just as we've started reading the news and watching the TV right after, we've seen that all the explosions are all over the country. And with us, I don't know why we had those conversations beforehand. What if? And so we understood that might be we need to take our kids and try to move a little bit further to the western part of Ukraine. But that day, I don't know why we had this, like, maybe it's a shock reaction, I don't know, but we decided to stay. And so with our kids were little at that time, 2, 3 years old. So it was the time when they need to go to bed at the lunchtime. And so for us, lunchtime was the time of decisions, because we realized whether we have to put them to sleep in the parking lot in our apartment. It's like four apartment buildings, and they create a square, and in the middle there is a parking lot underground. So we went there to look whether it's possible to put beds there. It's not done. Parking lot is just started to be constructed, so it's like messy and dusty, but still pretty good place to hide. And we've seen already the planes coming. So with little kids, for me it was easier to pretend it's a game. So I said like, oh, the plane is coming, let's hide. And we tried every plane. When it comes, we would run to the basement. I was trying to teach them how to react when they see kind of things like that. But at the same time, for us, it was a big worry about like, will it be a wise choice to stay and put them in bed? So we tried to think like how we will put beds downstairs, because we lived on the 7th floor, and just all those organizing all things, and thinking what if we would stuck in that parking lot for like a couple days? Do we have enough supply as like food and just basic hygiene stuff? So all those questions, we realized like maybe it's wiser to take them out of the city, and that was the moment of the decision. We just grabbed what we had already packed as we call it urgent backpack, because every Ukrainian was told to do that, and those who did, it was much easier to grab it and run. So we put them in the car, and we decided to take also my sister, my best friend, one of the best friends from Kiev, and one guy. So our car was fully packed, but my husband was not sure whether we will be able to get into Kiev, because the road, we have a short road from Irpin to the west, and then we have a road to go to Kiev to take all those people, and then try to get out of the city. But we were not sure we will be able to make that. Still, I feel like I would never ever forgive myself if I will not take people and pack the car as much as we can, because for me, people were the much more than stuff. So we take off some stuff like car seats for kids, and we just put them on lap, and we decided to go through Kiev. So on the way to Kiev, we saw already a column of tanks coming. I'm lucky not to know the events, because there was a field battle right near our city already going on, all the fightings. We didn't know that time. So for me, it was just the only question, like, whose soldiers are those? Whose tanks are those? And my first fear, I remember, like, shocking fear was, I have only one bag, but I have not one kid. So whom should I cover first in case it's not our soldiers? It's like very fast events happening, and you just try to realize this mess. And also when we got into Kiev, luckily, praise God, it was our Ukrainian army coming to fight that direction to Irpin, toward Irpin. And so when we got in Kiev, we stuck for 12 hours while we were picking my sister, my friend, and the guy. For 12 hours, we were just moving like 1 meter after another meter to Zhytomyr, toward Zhytomyr road, because the traffic jam was horrible. So we've seen all those planes. And just that moment, me as a girl, maybe boys would understand more, but I understood nothing. Like, what's going on? Who is who? Where? Like, those, we've seen tanks hiding along the road. I didn't know whose tanks are those. I didn't know whose planes were those. And yeah, so I've heard stories from my granddad, because he was in the World War II, and those stories became alive that moment. So it was kind of combination of all your thoughts, reality, feedbacks from what you've heard. Yeah, I just remember my granddad and grandmom, they always repeated, like, whatever happens in life, just no war, like nothing worse than the war. And here we are facing the war, not realizing what it looks like and what's happening. But yeah, we took that road to Zhytomyr first, and then to city near the border, and then the Poland border. We stayed there for 3 days and nights, and then we moved toward Tyachiv, where Miranda is Martha's sister. So it's like a short, brief overview of that day, which kind of messy in all kind of senses, in thoughts, in actions, in events, and all the news. You just stay on the phone with your parents, because my parents stayed in Poltava, and my sisters were in 2 different cities. So yeah, it was kind of mess.
So when I remember when all that was going on, I can't imagine being in it. What we saw on TV was lines and lines of cars. And the reports were saying things like sometimes there was attacks where people didn't expect to be attacked. There were checkpoints. Did you run into anything like that, or did you just have the long line of cars? Because a lot of people were stuck, but they were also really unsafe. Did you have any experiences like that?
I would say
Can you
this
tell
is
them
the
about
feeling.
What, Martha?
I was going to say, do you want to talk about when you had to cross that bridge?
Yeah, like it happened later on, but just I'll back to that day. Because when you stay in this line and you see all those planes, my first thought was like they will start bombing us, because they see this huge line and lots of people in the traffic jam, and it's the best goal, the best aim to shoot. And so when you see those tanks also, like you don't know whose tanks are those, whether they start shooting you. So you don't understand the reality, like how it's going on around you. So you have all these fears and uncertainty. I would say we stayed in fear right up till the moment we got into Zakarpattia, which was 5 days after. So all this way, we didn't understand who are coming in front of us in tanks, who are staying and hiding on the roadsides. We would not understand who are stopping us. Like we later on, we can say that these were our soldiers, our checkpoints. But at the same time, we didn't know whether we will be allowed after this checkpoint to move further. And you have no ideas. And also, you read the stories, you talk to your friends, and you do hear all those happening around just the country. And at the same time, you try to understand whether your parents are alive, whether your relatives are still alive, like what are their plans, what are their intentions, like what will they do in case, or just what they are doing now presently. Because we wanted everybody at that time to move toward the western part, but they decided to stay in Poltava and not move anywhere. And so with us, it was lots of feelings, just worries. And later on also, we've read that the road we took toward Kiev, there is a bridge from Irpin to Kiev. And this bridge, later on in news, I think you might see it somewhere in the news, because it was a huge, terrible event when every single car was shot, with kids, with adults, or elderly people. Like, Russians were doing this, I would say, for fun. But I mean, how dare you, if you see people escaping, if you see people are trying to get out of the city, because it was occupied at later on, and all those horror things happened in the city, but at the same time, also this road we took toward Kiev was shot every single car. So you always put yourself in that position, like, what if I stay 2 days later, I decide to move? And then in Irpin, those horrible things they've done to kids, to elderly people, like they raped kids, they tortured people, like with no kind of reason, just what I say, they call it for fun. I mean, it's unhuman. So you always think, like, what if we stay? Then we realize we might be one of those. And it's the fear, the feeling of every single day you bury yourself, like you consider yourself being dead, and then you're still alive, and then you think, what if I die now? Like, then explosions might happen, or rockets might hit. And in the road, it was the biggest, my fear as a girl, again, that they will start shooting all those cars in a line, because it's so easy. You see thousands of cars. And yeah, later on, we were moving toward western part, and there were 3 lanes toward, and then 3 lanes back. And then we started move 4 lines forward, 2 lines back, then 5 lines for 1 back, and then 6 lines were just moving forward. And whoever needed to go in Kiev, they did the side roads, and the police didn't stop anybody, because they saw all this huge traffic coming just one direction. And then we saw mostly only military technique would come to Kiev, to that direction. Yeah,
That's
so this
something
is,
I don't remember seeing too much about different, as many lanes opening up. That's really interesting that they did that. That was good
I
just
would
to
say,
just keep people moving, just as getting out as much as you can. I can't even imagine the fear, and it's even beyond worry about
I'm
what
sorry,
could
but
happen to you every
I would
moment.
say they were not going to open, like they didn't open. People were just starting moving, like it was just flood, and police didn't stop it because they saw it's kind of
Okay.
not reasonable.
Okay. So, Martha, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you started helping refugees and getting going with all the work you do with your sister?
Yeah, I want to say something about Miranda first. But so before the war started in the United States, we saw what was the news, what they're saying, how Russia's building up on all the borders, and we kept saying that. I kept telling Miranda, this war is going to happen. She kept saying, no, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. She didn't believe it, but she understands though too. Though people in Ukraine have family in Russia. They're side by side. So many Russians are in Ukraine, and Ukrainian, they're brothers and a lot of family members. So she didn't hardly want to believe it. She's like, no. And then right before the war started, like she said, God gave her a vision, and he said, prepare, the war is coming. And so she immediately talked to a lot of churches back here, and they reacted fast and wired her money so she could build up in case. And then when the war started for her, they're on the western part where it's safer. But she says people just started flooding in, and she goes, I don't think we slept at all, Harley, for the first weeks, because so many people were coming in, and they would do what they could. So first they were just helping people go through the line. There were long lines. They would stand in line forever trying to get out to Romania and Hungary and that kind of thing. And so she would just do stuff like, it was cold, February 24. So it was cold, and they would just stand in line and give people hot tea or bread or some of those kind of things and help as best they can. And then they were frantically trying to turn empty buildings into places for them to sleep. They just worked tirelessly. They took places that didn't have plumbing and stuff, and would put a toilet in or do some painting, they took a lot of empty buildings and fixed them up, make them temporarily, and then they started doing them more permanently. But those long lines that you've been talking about, that's exactly what she was trying to help people get out. But they would stand in line they'd be traveling for days to get out, and then they would still be hungry and no food, and then they'd walk out. So that is why, that's what was the question again to me? Sorry.
No, basically how when the war started from that time, what were the events that got you started helping refugees and basic anything you did to help people with your sister, but then also getting them over to the United States. How did you meet people?
So basically, you remember the Afghan war? Actually, it's another one of those God things that he placed me here to do. And so before that, my church was going to do Afghan resettlement. And so I was taking these classes, learning how to do Afghan resettlement. And then when the war started, I knew instantly that God had prepared me to help the Ukrainians instead. So in order to do this, what it is it's a program that our government made. It's called Uniting for Ukraine. And what you do is basically what it looks like is I'm applying for one specific family or person to come over. So the government looks at one individual. And so I apply, and I have to put their information and say, I'm inviting them to come. The government looks at me and says, yes, you are financially responsible. You can do this. And then we invite them over. And then once I get financially approved, I guess you want to say, from the government, then they have to do their biometrics, basically putting in their information saying, yes, I am who I say I am, and Martha invited me to come over here. That's anyway. And then they get something called travel authorization. And then we can buy tickets for them to come. So that's kind of the process on how this goes. And so, like I said, the first family that came, it was, my church and two other churches did it together. And then it was a lot of a learning experience, I'll be honest, because we didn't have a clue what we were doing. And we just kept learning. And then a one by one family would start coming, it got easier and easier. So when the war started too, I was Miranda's voice over here for her sponsoring churches. I'd go to a church and say, they'd invite me to come talk and say, what's going on with Miranda? How is she doing? What's going on with the war? Some of that kind of stuff. And I would be her voice so that, to explain what she's going through and stuff. And then at the end, I'd say, if you're interested in sponsoring a refugee family, come talk to me after and I will explain what it is. And so that's kind of how it started building up. I don't feel like I'm called to do this, right? This is what God's placed in my life to do, so I will do it. And I'm happy to be his hands and feet. And I am blessed more than anybody by these Ukrainians. They're my family. I feel I'm half Ukrainian, but like Aline and stuff, I mean, I love them all so much. They're my family. I can't imagine life without them. They're just amazing, amazing people. But so each family, each church that says, yes, we'll do it, I will train them, teach them all the steps, have everything written down step by step, and help them throughout the whole process. And a lot of times that's their sponsoring is their church, but I still very close with them all. So like Alina, her church, she was not in my church, but I love her and she's great and she's my family now too. I don't know how else to explain it, but
we call Martha our big Ukrainian mama.
That's amazing. She is wonderful. From the moment I met her, from the moment I met both of you, you're both just amazing people. And we understand that community. Just people think, well, you have a virtual community online and YouTube, but I'll tell you, I've been doing this now for over 2 years, and we see the same people in chat. We see the same people that are helping to donate. We see people who care. They're doing things on their own behind the scenes. So definitely, it's a huge community. We have this thing where everyone says that after the war, there's going to be this big Crimean beach party. We're going to meet on the beach.
I like that idea.
So we'll have to, everybody that we interview and get together, we'll just have to all plan that. We'll just make the party bigger. Be so much fun.
Yeah.
So moving on here a little bit. So Alina, how did you met Martha's sister? And what was your experience as far as meeting Martha's sister, meeting Martha, and going through the preparation to come to the United States? Tell us about how that all happened.
My meeting of Miranda happened 7 years before the invasion, full invasion. I mean, I just helped to lead the Christian camps for kids in their church, and that's how I met them, her and Vasa, her husband, as pastors. But the story was interesting because of this event that I went there. I've never been to the western part of Ukraine before that invitation to help with camps. So when I went there, the next year I took a helper for sports, and that helper took his friend. So it's a long story, but just to be short, my husband's one of the youngest brothers ended up being married there to a local girl in that city, Tatu. So when the war started, the full invasion, that day on this traffic jam, maybe it's weird to hear, but we had no clue where to go because of that mess in your head. You do not understand. You are in this line, but the question, like, where do you go? We have no ideas. So that's why we went closer to the Poland border, because one of my relatives stopped there in a house, and she says, like, I have place here. So we went there. But as soon as she decided to cross the border to Poland, we were like, we need another place to stay. So we were trying to understand. At that time, we had a little bit more understanding of the situation. So we decided to call Zhenya's brother and ask him, like, is it okay if we come? Because we were not only our family, but just with people with us. And he said, I remember those words, like, it's okay. We have already 150 up to 200. So 5, 7, 8 plus minus doesn't matter. The church is ministering to so many refugees, and they are all come and go. Some are staying. So come and we'll see. And so that's why we decided to go to my husband's brother. house, and there were one day, I remember, 18 people in 2 rooms with no doors. Like there is an open space with 18 people and little kids, and it's crazy because we didn't sleep that time for more than 2 weeks already, as my kids were young enough. So when everybody's yelling or like talking or something, they couldn't fall asleep. As soon as they fall asleep, someone already woke up, so it's already morning. And then all that event, all those events were kind of going on and on for around a month, like all these people being together, some are gone, and then we decided like it's time to try to find some separate place for living, but it was impossible. Like we wish we could find it 1 week after we stopped in Tues, but then we tried to find something, and it lasted for around a month when we could find finally, and it's by God's mercy, right in the nearest village. It's also a long story how we found that, but just God gave us a separate place to stay in one church in Sunday school building room. And we were so kind of like, I was crying the very first morning, because after all those people being together with little kids, and then the first morning when you just wake up and it's quiet, and you could sleep the whole night. Of course, we had some news reading time, and it's always like you don't sleep the whole night. You check up with family and friends because it's still the very first time. But with all of that, the church in Tues, where Marenta and Vasya are ministering, I would say they were also big mama and dad to all those refugees, because they were feeding all those people. Can you imagine, like 200 people? And they found around all those refugees who arrived, they had a group of ladies who were cooking. They had all this like self-organized system how to survive the very first time, because all the blankets, the pillows, the stuff like clothing, it was winter time. So some people would come, we would grab something, at least for kids and us, for winter, but there were people who just escaped and they had only their passport and that's it, for example. So they provided lots and lots of basic needs and stuff for those who arrived, and place to sleep. And it was like huge flow they were trying to organize, and they did a great job with that. And also we were ministered by the church we stayed with. It's another little church and village close to Tues, and they also did the same stuff, just providing place for us. Was at least for our family, such a huge relief, even with all that stress still going on, but just relief that you have place to stay, you have roof under your above your head. And they said like you can stay as long as you need. So it was also a big deal, because we never was planning to leave the country. So meeting Martha, it was more about like we stay here for 1 month as soon as the war ends, because everybody was really believing the fact that the war will be very short and just Russians will be pushed back to their land. But it was going on, and we realized like it's not of 1 or 2 month thing.
I think the entire world believed that this would be over quicker than it was. And it just kept going on and on and on. I do want to interrupt 1 second here. We have something on our channel. Just so the viewers know, this is Alina and Martha's first stream, and they're a little bit new to YouTube too. And we have something called Super Chats where people can donate money during the stream. And we just like to recognize those people when they donate. One of our viewers, Yvonne Way, we call her Super Sticker Queen. We just love her. She gave a super sticker for $3 and also for $5. And then we also had a super chat from Paul Gilbert, and he said, it's some news. President of Iran missing in helicopter incident in heavy fog in northern Iran. So that's basically a commentary about how the geopolitical world is changing. And we all know that everything that goes on in these other countries does affect how people see, listen to the news and look at Ukraine. And that goes back to what we do too, to try to keep everything top of mind here. One of the questions I had, Alina, was, and Martha, you can comment on this too, for when the families get to the United States. You said that initially your kids, you said, oh, well, this is just a game. And every time the planes come over, started as a game. But after weeks and months and them not used to sitting in a car for 12 hours at a time. At what point did you decide to answer questions, or if they said, "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" At what point did you start, or did you at all say there's something bad happening here, or how did you handle that? And then after that, Martha, I'd like to know what the kids said when they got to the United States, things that you heard about their recollection of their experiences.
Yes, we on the way we were pretending it's a game. Like when they saw soldiers, they said like, "Oh, look, it's a big gun." But we were trying to pretend, but at the same time we were trying also gently to tell them the reality that this is the war happening, and some bad guys attacking the Ukraine, and the good guys are trying to protect. So these are our army. So we explain them like there are good soldiers who are our soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, and they are heroes because they're protecting, and they are bad guys who are attacking Ukraine. That's why our good soldiers will do that. But at the same time, I'm very blessed with that point that my kids didn't see death close and explosion. Like we've seen the explosion of the airport near Irpin the day we decided to move. This was, by the way, one of the reasons why we moved. We saw this big explosion of the airport in the Stomel, right near the city. So this fume, this is the only maybe scary thing they saw. The loud sounds they never heard. What they do experience, it's sirens or warning signals, alerts.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I understand, we were communicating with lots and lots of kids, and they would hear from other kids the experiences those kids went through. Or like my sister, she lives in Kremenchuk, so when they have the mall rocket hit, they live right nearby, 200 meters from there. So we told them to come to the western part. We stayed just for 1 month at least, so they can breathe out. And kids, so the younger kid, she lost her speech for a while, so they would talk to those kids, and mostly from their experience they will realize like how rocket, bomb, missiles, just some horrible stuff. They would hear from the kids more like the reality. We would explain it in more gentle, general way, and we would explain everything so they will know what's happening. And we just didn't want them to experience death itself, and we were very blessed they didn't. But they saw on screens sometimes, like the European city we've been to, when we watched the news, of course, like that time everybody was stuck to the screen. Like we would live with the phone day and night, so our kids would hear something, saw something, because you never know what will be in the news next time. But yeah, so they were too young that time, and maybe this is the good point for me. They didn't understand much, but whatever they could understand, we would explain. And the other kids, when they tell something, we would always comment on that. Yeah.
Wow. So Martha, what kind of things did you hear from the kids that came? I know there's the adult versions, but the recollection and the memories of the kids when they came over, what did you hear?
Yeah, I can tell you a few different stories, but like, for example, what Miranda would tell me would be, it's just heartbreaking. So she's there, and all these refugees would be coming. Her church is like the size of like 30 families, and they'd be feeding like 200 people every day. So it was a lot. But she would tell me about some of the kids that would come, and they were so scared, so traumatized that they would stop speaking for a while. Or they hired this man who does, I guess you want to say, magic shows, and try to get the stress relieved and help the kids with crafts. And we would send stuff here. I have family all over the United States, and they would be sending stuff to Miranda, like crafts and warm clothes and all that kind of stuff to keep these kids occupied, to help them, because they don't understand. And it's very heartbreaking. But I can tell you, like, some of the families that have been here, so we have a lot of kids here, to be honest. There's this one young boy. I won't be saying names or anything, but anyway, so he is 14 now. When he came, shortly after he came, he had some older friends that were fighting, and he was really traumatized because one of his best friends was killed, and the only way they recognized him was the bottom of his feet. You hear stories about like they would tattoo their names on the back of their feet or their heads or that kind of thing, so that if they got blown up, they could be recognized. And yeah, he's 15 now, and he's just he struggles. He really struggles about that kind of stuff. There's another little girl who, she just came here about a month ago, And she's from Sumi. I don't know if I say it right. Is that how I say it, Alina? Sumi,
Right.
which is on the, so, yeah, she's way on the eastern side, close to Russia. And when the bomb started, just her and her mom, they were in underground in bunkers for 6 months. And she just turned 5, so she was 2.5 years old, and she was very traumatized. And 6 months being underground. Excuse me. Anyway, and then they snuck out. Her and her mom snuck out, and she was in Poland and Romania and stuff. And then she just came. But this little girl, it's when you talk about psychological stuff, it's the fight or flight mode, right? So that's all she knows, fight or flight. So all the little people, all the little kids that she's coming in contact with, her natural defense is to fight them, or she gets mad. Her English is not very good. It's kind of cute, but the first time she met me, she would just growl at me like a bear, and I'm like, thinking, what's wrong? But she doesn't understand. Most of her life now, all she's known is this war, and moving from place to place and not understanding the language. And after the first time I met her, and starting to get to know her better, she's the sweetest little girl, and she's very loving, but she doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know who to talk to. She's scared. You know what I mean? I'm learning a lot. I'm not a psychiatrist, but my daughter's actually going to school, double majoring. One of them is psychology, and she was trying to explain this to me. But the fight or flight, it's a natural response, and they're fleeing. They're fighting for their lives. They're scared, and so as a young child, she really doesn't understand. There's other kids here too that I've heard all their stories. A lot of times, even if language is a barrier, we can have a translator, or they write it down and we learn it. It's really sad. There's one family here. It's a family of 11, a mom and dad, the grandpa. The grandma died shortly before the war of breast cancer, and they have 8 kids. And from all different ages, right? So I've heard all their stories about what they've gone through, and the older kids, they understand war, they understand what's going on. And it's very hard. But the little kids, like if they're 2 and 3, like Alina's kids were, it's almost easier. Maybe if they could just got out, because she made it a game and stuff. But if you were stuck there living underground for 6 months, it's no school. Miranda says now, so like I said, they're Tachiv, and it's safer, but they still hear the sirens, and they still in school have to be able to go underground if they hear the sirens. But everybody on the east, they're not in school. These kids, it's online if they can have internet or Wi-Fi. Otherwise, they're not going to school, and it's really hard. And a lot of those kids are still there. Miranda told me about. They get a lot of aid and send it to the east through different people helping, or different people in their church. And she told me about a story maybe 6 months ago about this brother and sister. They were quite young. And she says this is actually more and more common once you get to know it. But the dad was taken to fight. The mom disappeared. Who took her? Nobody knows. Like, did a Russian civilian, did a Russian soldier just take her? It's not uncommon, and they're living on their own. Anyway, so one of the people from their town that were bringing the aid there, they found this little boy and this little girl. He was taken, I think it was like a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the 7-year-old brother was trying to take care of the little 5-year-old girl, but they couldn't leave. They have no phones. They have no family. They don't understand, trying to go to Tachiv. There's no way to get them out. And there's no parents. There's no family. So they brought them aid. And I told Miranda, I said, I would love to find a way to adopt these children, get them safe. There's a lot of people that probably don't have any parents or family, but Miranda explains to me that that's not possible. You can't just take kids. When the war ends, then maybe the government will set up ways that we can adopt them. But until the war ends, you can't just take kids out, which I totally get it. What if there's family there? But my heart just breaks for these kids. They don't deserve this. They don't. Yeah.
That was actually a question.
I can talk all day about this.
Well, and everybody, we are going to have Martha back. She said there's so many families that want to get their stories out, and hopefully this will just be one in somewhat of a series. To tell the individual stories of these refugees, because every single story is a different viewpoint on the war. But one of the questions we had from somebody was about adoption programs, and So we're going to sideline just a little bit. Maybe we can come back to this. Can you tell us a little bit that there, actually, yep. Oh, any programs where you can adopt an orphan, but they're not allowing things right now?
I'm not a specialist on this at all, but this is what Miranda explains to me, that Ukraine, you cannot, legally, you can't just go in and say, I'm going to take these kids, they're orphans. I mean, they have to do all the background check and make sure that somebody signs off, but it's also, Ukraine has always had a lot of problems with orphanages, okay? Like I said, Miranda's been there forever, and I've been there and went to orphanages and helped her and stuff. And there's a lot of orphans in these orphanages. But until the war ends, she says you can't legally just take them. They got to do their due diligence. What if a dad's fighting and he comes back? They got to just make sure that there is no family. You can't just, what if there's a grandpa and grandma? They have to figure them out. But again, remember, this government is in war in upside down. That's a lot of work. And when the war started, some of these orphanages, they would just take them, these kids, and just real orphans, and take them out. So how do you know who's an orphan anymore and who's not? What if the mom and dad are just split up? And I don't know. It's going to be harder, but we really want to work on this. But the way Miranda explains it to me, until the war ends, it's not going to happen.
And there are so few organizations that are actually focusing on this. The organization that I see is Recovering the Children That Have Been Stolen. But one of the guests that we have had on our channel before, he actually supports an organization. So I can find that later, and maybe people can support that. As far as support for Martha, and her cause, I actually have to, I was remiss in getting your link. We are going to, because we would love to hear more stories from the refugees and Martha, we would like to set up something like a PayPal. But for now, Martha actually has a Venmo. So when I have a minute here, I will go ahead and put that link in there. It is Venmo, I believe, is something that the only United States has. But all of that money does go to help the refugees. And Martha works more than 3 jobs. And, she works with her church to try to get money to bring more families over, because when they're not working and they basically sometimes just have the clothes on their back, they need a lot of financial help. So we'll get that in for everybody. So kind of moving on, Martha, can you I know this is going to be a really long answer, but you touched a little bit about some of the official paperwork. You have to do paperwork, there's visas. Can you tell us a little bit about the actual nuts and bolts of the paperwork that's needed? And do Ukrainian families need to have any kind of money, or it's basically all on the family that's bringing them in? So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my, okay. It's a lot of detailed, boring. Hard to say, but I'll try to explain. So basically, this is why it works good through Miranda. So she'll say, okay, this family has the international passports. That's the main thing. They have to have an international passport. And then if they have their right, that's all they truly need. And then I invite them here. That's what it looks like it's called an I-134A. If you go to Uniting for Ukraine program, you'll see what you all need. So if Miranda says, okay, here, she'll give me the contact, and then I will talk to them. And then I have all the questions that I need. I have to know where they lived in Ukraine, where they're living now. I do have to ask how many assets, but truthfully, nobody has anything, because I get it. Even if you were outrageously rich and you're in the East and you had to flee for your life, can you sell your business and get money out? Can you sell your house? No, it's probably bombed. There's probably nothing left. Or even if it's not bombed, how do you sell it? Who wants to buy a house in territory that's being bombed? I don't know. But so most of them come with absolutely nothing or very little. You usually have 1 suitcase or 2 suitcases, and that's it. And their international passports. So I will ask them the proper questions. And on the United for Ukraine program, we have to put it in So it looks like you're matching Ukrainian with us, if that's what it looks like. So one person is inviting this particular family. That's what it looks like on the program. And then, yeah, we invite them over, and the only thing they really need is that international passport, truthfully. But yeah, then we do it all. And then when they come, there's lots of stuff we have to fill out. Like, yeah, all these numbers, which I'm not going to rattle off, but to get work authorization, to get the Social Security number, our government, we can get Medicaid, cash assistance, food stamps, which all helps. But there again, our government is changing stuff all the time. So for example, September 30 of 2023, the government, it's going to be included. Now I'm going to tell you a lot about politics. I learned a lot about the Ukrainian laws and our government laws, and each state is a little bit different too. So I have a family in South Dakota, and we're in Iowa. So every state has a little bit different laws too. So I feel like a politician by now, because it's just so much information that it is crazy, but you can't keep up with our laws. So for example, September 30 of 2023, our government hit their debt ceiling. So basically they were going to close down our government. And so the politicians are like, well, in order to keep it open, they cut absolutely everything out except for what they needed. So the Ukrainians, anybody 18 or above got nothing. So they could not apply for Medicaid, cash assistance, food stamps, which made our job a lot harder. We had to come up with a lot more money to financially help them, because before, like, if you can get Medicaid, great, that saves us a lot of money. If we can get some food stamps, it saves us money too, if that makes sense. So basically, we've been writing all our Congress, or everybody, and trying to. So now, about not even a month ago, they added it back in. So now we can apply for food stamps, cashes, and all that kind of stuff. But that only goes to September 30 of this year, and we're in a political year. So who knows what's going to happen? It's I don't know. I don't want to get into politics, but it's a pain. It really is. And every state's a little bit different too. So we'll see. So really, I'm working hard now, and the next one's coming before September 30 in case they cut that out again. But who knows if they will add it back in or how that goes. I have 2 families coming that I just bought tickets for again, that they fly in soon. And we're always working on the next ones. So it's a never ending thing. And even if you're here for a year, 2 years, there's always things that they need. Like I have one family, our very first family that came, their oldest wants to go to college now. He graduates from high school next week. And they're asking, okay, now what? So they don't know about like FAFSA and what you have to do for college and all that kind of stuff. So it's, even if you've been here for a while, it still takes a lot. But our community, like I said, about 140 in our little Sioux County. But all their colleges, everybody's working really, really good about stuff. Like one college where for English lessons, what we first did is, we would just try to teach them ourselves. Then we had a Ukrainian that spoke, a couple that spoke really good English, and they would teach it. Well, then they all have jobs, so it got to be too much. Now we have a local college that 2 nights a week, for 3 hours each night, we just do English lessons for advanced, beginners, all these different levels. And then they can keep moving up. It's really, really good. And then there's another college we're working on. Alina knows the cultural adaptation class that we worked with. She was part of that. And our community is really, really working on all of it, get them adjusted and stuff. But when they come with only a suitcase, what we have to do is we find a place for them to live, which is probably one of the hardest things right now, because there's not very many places to rent. We find a place to rent. We set up a house. So you walk in a house, everything's set. I mean, imagine everything you have to take along. We have pot holders, pots and pans, beds, furniture, absolutely everything. This house is fully ready for them to walk in and relax. You know what I mean? Think of all that stress they've been doing. They just traveled, leaving the war, all the countries. I mean, one of the best things I love hearing when they come, is they're safe. I mean, one of the families we just brought here, she started crying and she couldn't speak English. And she says, we're safe. And that's what matters, right? They're safe. And then there's so many other things we have to work on, finding a job for them, teaching them, like I said, teaching English, but getting the kids enrolled in schools. We have how many different schools, because they're all a little bit different cities around here. Getting enrolled in schools. The schools are working really, really good to help these kids adjust, but it's a lot, especially if they don't speak English. Imagine sticking them in a class and they don't know it, but they are so smart. These kids are amazingly smart. They pick it up so fast. Ukrainians are hardworking, but they're so smart. It's fun to see. I mean, I'll go back if I haven't seen a family for a couple weeks or a month or 2 months or whatever, because I have a lot of them around here. But anyway, I can't believe how fast they're learning it. If you made me learn their language, It's not possible. I'm too young, but I'm too old too, maybe. I don't know. I just can't imagine. When Miranda went to Ukraine the first time, she didn't speak to anybody. She had to learn it herself. I mean, she amazes me, but yeah, I can't imagine what these Ukrainians are coming here, not speaking it, not being able to talk to us, and it's hard. But we have Google Translate, and we have so many amazing Ukrainians that will help translate. Like Alina, there's enough of them here that speak it and can help translate. So it makes it really, really good. And even we also talked to them. I have one girl who's thinking about coming right now. She's 23. And she's so scared about leaving everybody, but she knows is what's best for her. But there's so many other Ukrainians that can speak to her and help her, and they have their own community of that they get that they've all been through this, so they can help, which is, it's really good. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I don't know what a question you had asked.
Alina, did your kids speak any English when you came here? Where were they at, and how did they do in school?
When my first son was born, I was talking English to him just for the sake of he will learn the language back in Ukraine, like before the invasion. So he will learn the language better and faster with all the kids who go to school, because we do have English lessons in school, public schools or private. When my second child was born, I had little time to do that because he was teeny tiny, and then the invasion happened. So he didn't understand at all. When we got to US, my older kid didn't understand kids talking, teachers, and younger definitely didn't. And so they came back every time from school home so irritated and angry. And I realized like they would keep all the day long all their emotions, words, and they couldn't communicate, and then they would pour out it in home. So the very first month was kind of challenging for them. But then my older son, because he remembered something and some words were familiar for him, he was faster at picking up the language, and then younger one joined. And literally now I am talking only Ukrainian to them just for the sake they won't forget the language, because now they speak to each other more English than Ukrainian. I'm like, you have to remember Ukrainian first, because it's easier for kids to be faster, much faster than adults. I mean, like now they think, I would be right saying that they think English, but whenever they need to talk to mama, only Ukrainian.
I was lucky enough, so our viewers know, I was lucky enough to have a call with these ladies before, and Alina's sons were going to bed, and I expected to hear only Ukrainian, but he spoke English and he had no accent or anything. You'd think he was, it was really interesting, and they're just adorable. Your kids are just adorable. So one of the things that we can do on our channel is when people give super chats, they can also attach a question. And I'd like to actually go to those, the people that did super chats and donated. We have a donation from Cinnamon. She sent us $30, and this actually goes towards NAFO and for our truck fundraiser. So thank you so much, Cinnamon, for that. We want to finish that off. I think we're 90% or over finishing that fundraiser off right now. Blonde Bombsheller, she's one of our longtime viewers, and we just love her here. She said, "Welcome, Martha and Alina, and I'm a rock star." I think Dick's the rock star. I'm the folk artist, but thank you, Blonde Bombsheller. That's awesome. Belle Cowart, she's more of a new viewer for us. Her question is, how can people in the U.S. help displaced families? She lives in Arizona, and she's had a hard time finding anything local, rallies, events, fundraisers. Martha, maybe you can give us that name. Did you say United 124? I can Google that and put that, or what was the name of the?
United for Ukraine. That's the program. That's our government's program that this goes through. So you have to go, but that's not a donation place. That's it.
I lost your audio there for a minute. If you could repeat that.
The program to make it legal, the program is called Uniting for Ukraine, but that's our government is the program that they set this up in order to get them all here legally. Okay. So it's not a program that they can donate, but who wants to help a family, she can go on there and go Uniting for Ukraine and set up an account, and then she can invite a family. So if she's interested in sponsoring, I can give her a family and give her all the information if that's what she's wondering. To actually help, that's just a government website to how we start this. But I don't have a website exactly to help. I have a Facebook she can watch me on, or Venmo, but I'm just I'm just one person who my church helps me and stuff, but I usually, like, the last 3 families is just me. It's hard to find sponsors now. So I just have 3. I'm just doing it on my own. And then, like, I'll have a Ukrainian that will help me get the house ready and help with that kind of stuff. Cause I do work a lot of jobs. So
I think the churches are I'm finding out churches just in general are very powerful with helping refugee families. Even when I was growing up, and there was like the Hmong refugee crisis, and I was pretty young when that happened, and it was only churches that could bring families over, and because they could fundraise. One of our channel friends, Greg Terry, I think I told you about that. He's the pastor at Bethel Church in Pennsylvania. They have monster fundraisers, and they actually have missionaries all over the world. So we'll see if we can do some research, and if anybody can help out. We have a Discord. If you want to do some research for other people who want to find out to help. When I Googled for Iowa, I saw organizations that even if you could just donate clothes, or if you could donate money, if you could help, if you were a translator, there's like a lot of different things that you can do other than just sponsoring a family, if you could find the organization. But again, I got lucky because I only found one organization, and I think it's out of Iowa City, and I just happened to find Martha from a newspaper article that they wrote about her and what she was doing. And then, of course, my research skills, I'm like, let's find Martha. So it isn't that easy. And I feel like I got really, really lucky. It took me a few hours of searching and reading, but there really just needs to be more out there, I think. So we'll work on that and see if we can't, help our viewers out to get more involved.
There's other ways to help too, like Miranda in Ukraine right now. There's ways to sponsor her, and she's helping all the refugees that can't leave. Or I have a lady, her name is Lucy. Her real name I can't say, it's Ukrainian, but she can't leave Ukraine either. So what she does, I would love to show you. Maybe it's a time for another topic. She paints amazing, gorgeous, beautiful paintings on canvases and stuff, and she rolls them up, sends them to me, and then we stretch them and then try to sell them for like free will donation money, whatever. And then I can wire her the money back, but it's a way for her to live, because in Ukraine, like, there's no jobs, there's no income, there's no way for these people to support themselves. So any way we can help her is also helping her get a living. Or Miranda there, if people want to support her, I can, you can Venmo me yet too, or whatever. And then I can give her the money, because there's so many Ukrainians there that have no way to live, that can't leave. So that's one amazing way. But anyway, you can, if you want to send me the money, I will, and tell me how you want it used. I can use it for Ukrainians here. I can use it for the Ukrainians there, for Lucy, or any of it. Or you can just make the check out to my church too, whatever. But it doesn't have to be through a church. Like, for example, the last couple of families, it's just me and another lady did. Or we have families just a husband and wife do on their own. The reason churches work good is because it does require a decent amount of money and a lot of work. So, but it doesn't have to be. If you really have the heart for doing this, you can do it. And I will do step by step and tell you exactly how to do it and everything. It's so rewarding. It is such a blessing. I feel like I am blessed more than the Ukrainians by doing this.
That's what they say, is that if you want to feel really good about life, do something to help other people. Like, if you're feeling down, do something to help somebody else, and it will lift you up. Martha, can you help me? I've had these ladies on a few different social media threads here. Did you send me your Venmo in WhatsApp or in Messenger? Yeah. I'm trying to desperately find it here. Or maybe just you can just resend it. Resend it to WhatsApp, and I'll grab it off of here.
I'll say resend. Okay, sounds good. I'll do that right now.
Okay, let me go back to, we had some other good questions in here. I'd like to, so one of our guest hosts and just amazing Shills family member, Commander McMillan, most of you know I'm a Navy veteran, and Commander is a Navy veteran also. And he has a question here. How are the refugees that are living abroad in different places finding that they're received? Like, if you come to the United States, how are people received if they're going to Poland? Or do you have any viewpoint on that, or any information? Do you talk to people who are in different areas and how the locals are treating them?
Well, maybe Alina would be better to answer this, but honestly, from the ones in Sioux County, the 140, they are so well received. They're all very well, and they have jobs. The businesses will call me and say, "Oh, Martha, do you have any more? We would love to hire more of them. They're such hard workers. They're so good with cleanliness, and they're just amazing." So bosses, the people, employers will call me all the time. "Do you have anybody else coming? We need this. We need a man. We need a woman." All that kind of stuff. They're very well received here. But maybe Alina can talk more about what she thinks, how she was received.
Oh, we're not hearing Alina. She might have to. Dick, let me see if he's, so we might need to have Alina rejoin here.
Okay.
Oh, there she is. Now we hear you. Hey. Perfect. Okay. Let me go back to, let's see if there's some other questions here. Someone wants to know the name of your church, Martha, here in Iowa.
It's Bethel CRC in Sioux Center, Iowa.
You're with Bethel too.
That's the church I belong to. Yeah. That's the church I belong to. But a lot of these churches are sponsoring Ukrainians on their own. So, like, for example, I went to a church just a year ago, and they sponsored a family, and they learned how to do it. Now the next family they want to do, they can totally do it on their own, because they know what they're doing now. It's not that hard, really. But I can see, as a church wants to do this, it's a little bit scary at first. And, why reinvent the wheel, right? So if somebody knows, if you can just tell them step by step what they have to do, it's a lot easier. So, but yeah, I go to Bethel CRC in Sioux Center, Iowa.
Are all Bethel churches connected? Because that's okay. Because Greg Terry's in Bethel in Pennsylvania, so there's just a bunch of churches named Bethel, but they're not connected. Okay.
Nope.
That's a little hard for me to wrap my head around, but okay, that's all right.
Oh, Alina's back on.
Yep.
Sorry, do you hear me now?
Yep. Yes, we hear you. It's perfect.
Yes, sorry.
So I think so Alina, we wanted to ask you about if you hear stories about how refugees are received in other countries, and how the locals are treating them. And
I will start with with myself, because when we arrived, we had a great welcoming embracement of the local church and Martha with all her crazy organization stuff. But the church, First Reformed Church of Orange City, they did that preparation for us as well. The setting of the housing, they help with the basic needs at first, like it's food, and then before you can get any opportunity to get job or work authorization, you still need transportation to do all your social security, work authorization, all the footprints and everything for the documentary process. So they gave us rides. And so I would say, in our case, we have nothing to complain at. We're more than blessed with all the welcoming and just this work they've done beforehand. So when we arrived in home. We were extremely blessed comparing to the cases I can hear. I have lots and lots of friends and some of the relatives who are in different countries around the world, and the situations are very different. I mean, like, the cases are two-way different. Some of them were very welcomed by the country, by the government, of course. I'm talking about many countries, not only US, and especially if they had some friends or family relatives there. But mostly those who have nobody, like no friends, no relatives, if they come to the country, they don't speak the language, it made this so hard. I mean, I was the only person in our family who spoke English, so I was able to communicate, especially with this documentary stuff. But I think it makes it too much different and harder when you do not speak the language. This is what I hear more often. Like, it drives people crazy when the documents come to your mail and you can't understand what is required there, or like appointment is set and you cannot talk to the person. So this is the hardest issue when you do not know the language, and also when you do not have anybody, like Martha, for example, or Ukrainian community, which is very close now in Iowa. I mean, in Iowa, as far as I know, there were, like, in Orange City and Sioux County, there were not many Ukrainians before the invasion. But then with the war start being more widespread and families starting coming to, there are 140 for now. But of course, before, there was nobody who would introduce the Ukrainian culture and American culture to each other. So what basically happened, it's a cultural adjustment, and there are people who now help, and I know Rachel is doing this course. So it helps when there are people who stands for you, like Martha, like First Reformed Church in our case, who would be there for you. And it's so hard when I hear all those stories of my friends and people I know when they come to the country and they do not know the language, they don't speak, and they don't have anybody to get advice from. But Ukrainians are helping Ukrainians a lot. This is what I know for sure in different cities, in different countries, because as soon as the Ukrainians are there, like, of course there are good and bad people, but mostly they are more native or close, even they don't know each other, just because they are from the same situation. Yeah, but I would say such acceptance and such welcoming as we received in Orange City, not many people can boast with.
Oh, Martha, you and your community have done an amazing job. And that's the one thing I think anybody who's traveled to a different country where you don't know the language, or maybe you know a little bit, like, bottle of water, where's the bathroom, something, just the basics. If you spend any amount of time, and I have in countries where I didn't know the language, there's this thing that happens. It's not just missing your language, it's missing your culture. It's like feeling you just got dumped into cold water, then hot water, and you just never get even. And you do kind of fall into this, it's a depression, really, where you just, you feel alone. You feel like you can't relate to anybody. But that leads me to another question I had. I think it probably does depend on how many Ukrainians are in a community, but how well do you think the United States is doing now with having cultural activities with Ukrainians and developing local, I don't know if you want to call it a festival or just even events, things like that, so that they can connect to their culture?
Honestly, there's pockets all over the United States. So, like, let's just say there was a pocket of Ukrainians in Sioux Falls already. So when the war started, they invited more Ukrainians to help each other. But then a lot of it is, then they're all together. I know of a couple different pockets. One's in Sioux Falls, but in Florida, they're all over. But I think some of the problems, what I've heard is with this is, so let's just say they have a pocket. They don't have to learn the language then. They don't have to adjust, because they can all just, I have an example. I have one that's in Florida, and there's a big enough pocket now that they're not learning the language. They've been here for 2 years and can't say anything in as kids, even, because they're starting their own. They don't go to schools. They're staying together, which it's not bad, but to adapt, to learn the language it's important, right? To get in. But in Sioux County, I can only talk truthfully about Sioux County. I feel like we're doing really good with getting them involved and cultural adaptation. We do fundraisers for them. Many in the last 2+ years, 2 years and since the first one came, just say, we've been doing different things. Like they make their food, their specialty, and then they invite us over and we all get to try their food. Um, they are amazing. They all work full time and they have such talent. Like one does really, really good with nails. So she's doing that. And so many people go to her now and they love how she does her nails. One lady, she is a masseuse. So she's trying to advertise her business and we try to get the word out. And she does really, really good. She's starting her own little massage business. They make their food and sell it. There's one that just opened a store. The two ladies together opened a store in Orange City to sell Ukrainian food. And the people are loving that kind of stuff. Like I said, there's one that does paintings. And so I think Orange City and Sioux County, Sioux Center, they're adapting very, very well. And we're welcoming them and we support them. So I feel like it's going. But yeah, Alina was right. There was no Ukrainians in Sioux County before the war. None. So there again, but the good thing is this is another thing how God works. But we always had foreign exchange students growing up. So when I was a kid, we always had foreign exchange students. We had 3 different ones: one from Sweden, one from Russia, and one from Mexico. But Sveta was my sister, my adopted sister, we call her now, from Russia, and so she was our first one. So she came to us when we were in high school yet, and then she has a mom and dad and brother back in Russia. So I hear the Russian side of what's going on. And like I said, my biological sister is in Ukraine. So I hear what's going on there. But my adopted sister from Russia, a foreign exchange student, she lives here. So she was our translator for the first while because she could speak Russian and talk to all of them and help us out. But yeah, she does go back to Russia whenever she can to go visit her family. But yeah, that's how, yeah, it's amazing how God works, because God had her come so many years ago, 20+ years ago, before the war even started. So, and she's against the war too, but I'm just telling you, she's, yeah. Here.
No, I visited, I told you both, I was in Russia also, and I had a very good friend. Her name was Natalia, and I met her in San Diego, and she was a foreign exchange student in language studies. And it just goes to show you that not everybody I always say people are not their country, and I would hope that the United States is a good example of that, because we have a lot of division here. And although we have a lot of people who don't have other people's best interests in mind, we do have a lot of wonderful people here too. So I think what's the word? Those without sin cast the first stone. So nobody is in a position to judge completely there. So it's to share your story about the people in the towns that open restaurants and bring the culture in. Dick Dawson, our channel owner, producer, everything, he is in British Columbia, Canada, and he has a Ukrainian family in his town with a bakery, and we've done some mini fundraisers. He's helped them out a little bit, but they actually call him now and say, "Hey, we've got fresh baked goods." So that's the kind of thing I would love. Get to know some families and get that call, say, "It's fresh, come get the food." So I think that whenever you get culture, different culture into a city, it can only make it better, because you could just get a lot of different points of view and stories, and your world just opens up. People can learn about Ukraine without even going there, just by getting to know the people that are in their area. We did have another super chat. This was very generous. Cinnamon sent us $100, and this is for our NAFO fundraiser. So thank you so much. I did put Martha's Venmo account in the chat if you feel comfortable donating there. I do want to have your sister on, and Martha's going to work on that. Her sister who's volunteering in Ukraine, and hear her stories. And Alina, this interview I think is just wonderful, because it's opened up my world, and I think it's going to open up yours too. And that we're going to be able to bring all these people in to tell their personal stories, which I can't think of something better to do to raise awareness for other people. And that goes into my next question. And again, it's very subjective, meaning it's your own personal opinion. But Alina, can you tell everybody out there, if someone said, "Hey, how do I find out about Ukraine?" and they just want to learn, and we say raise awareness, learn about the war, learn what people need, learn about even the politics of it, because that seems to be running everything now. What would you tell someone is, and I know it might be a tough question, but they say, I need to learn about what's going on in Ukraine. What would be your answer to them?
Maybe the best thing is to talk to people. I mean, find Ukrainians and talk to them personally. Because how do I learn from, of course, from news? This is one thing, but everybody watch the news. But what makes it personal, every situation which happens back home, it's people whom I know. We were, the 10 months we've stayed in Ukraine before we decided to move to US, we were doing the volunteer job with pastors from different churches all over Ukraine, because in my past I was a youth minister with many churches, just get very good connection, knowing people, knowing pastors personally. So when the invasion happened, I was not present there in all those churches, but I had people there. I could talk and ask those who went to the front lines, those who stayed in the occupied areas ministering there. I mean, they are till now, and those who send aid there, bring vans and support. Some of the pastors, they are doing more with relocated people. They minister in those who relocated from occupied territories and front lines, but most of them, they still do trips to the front lines. They do minister people in need, and they see reality with their own eyes. They don't hear, they don't hear or something, but just they feel and touch the reality. So I trust those people, and I do know the news from there. So if the person is interested, of course, there are so many news channels which are pro-Ukrainian, and they are pretty truthworthy. And I know you can give the links even, but talking to more when you can feel, only when you can talk to a person who can share their experience and who know people from back there. Because, for example, my sister's family is still in eastern part. They minister more to relocated people. They're in Kremenchuk, which is near Poltava, pretty eastern area, which is not as close to the front lines, but people try to escape closer to their homes, and they stay there. So they have lots and lots of people there, like Miranda, for example. She can tell you all those stories better than I do, better than even Martha knows from her. So as closer people know somebody in Ukraine, they can trust those people because they see and they feel and they experience much better than the news or general information. This is my maybe advice, like find some Ukrainians, and if they want to find them here, those who went through some experience, they also, like, each story is different, each family has different experience to share. We never find anybody who has the same, we call it trauma, because every family had their own trauma with all those situations.
Maybe I'll work on that. Maybe we can find a way, because, like, for me, I can't just go run out in the street going, is there a Ukrainian to talk to? But I'm lucky enough, because of being with the channel, I've talked to many Ukrainians, and I have a friend who volunteers over there. So, but, that would be, maybe there's some way to make a little group or something, just to have a group chat, and people, can learn about that. I'll work on that.
May I add also, just my thought was, I'm now in Philadelphia, which is a huge community. I mean, Ukrainian diversity here is very big comparing to Iowa. But at the same time, what I've noticed, churches are doing the most job back in Ukraine, and churches are doing the most job here in US. So most of Ukrainians who were welcomed, they were welcomed by the churches. And those who are now supported, they are supported whether it's Ukrainian community or American community, but through the church. This is how it works from my perspective. I mean, most of connections we can make here, as we had nobody beside one person coming, literally two people coming to Philadelphia whom we knew before, but coming to the church, Ukrainian church, it gave us for now hundreds of contacts and friends and new people we met who were very, very welcoming. those who stayed here before the invasion. I mean, for 5-10 years before us coming.
So, Martha, this is a question that came to me on instead of asking you about how to raise awareness, and I don't know if it's going to be a sensitive or question or not, but there's people in the world who don't particularly want to go to church, but they want to do something good. Is it possible for a person, if they find out about a church that's doing some good, to just say, hey, I might not come here, but I would certainly love to help volunteer? I know it might be a loaded question, but is it possible? Because I think people are like, oh, they're going to ask me for money, or I don't want to go to church. I don't want to, but I do want to help. So what would you tell us about those situations?
Absolutely. They can help in any way without going to church. I mean, I'm not saying you have to go to church. It's just that's my way to reach out. I mean, I have somebody who's doing a great job. I won't say her name, but I mean, she's getting to retirement age. She has the biggest heart. I mean, she's helped me with anything, and she doesn't go to any church. She's very much against church right now. I'll just be honest. But anyway, and she's been a huge blessing to me. She's helped. Herself. She's not married. She's sponsored 3 Ukrainian individuals on her own, 100%. Anything I need, I'll call her. I was having a problem with something, and she goes, "What do you need, Martha?" And of course, she helped me. Just because the reason a lot of my connections are through church, but doesn't mean you have to go to church. Like I said, this one lady, she's one of the best blessings I've had, and she's an American, and she sponsored 3 on her own already. And after she gets one done, and even if they're not hers, not her, she's not individually sponsoring, I'll call and say, hey, I got this problem. Can you drive this one man to his car broke? She drove him to work every day for 2 weeks for me. And then I had to bring a man to the airport. I called her every single time. She doesn't even hesitate. Absolutely, Martha. So there's ways to help without going to church. So yeah, if they want to help, that's great. So just reach out to me. I have no problem putting myself in this number, and you can have them reach out to me too. I mean, if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. I'm not
if people
scared.
want to reach out to me, they can find me on Discord. And if they want to reach out to me, they can, I don't know if somebody can make a note or something. We have ways to do that. But I think as this progresses, because Martha, you said you have more families that want to tell your story. Alina, I would love to hear more from you. And then this world is just opening up. It's just amazing. But it brings a question to mind about, you say, okay, sponsor a family. What kind of, if you could give a ballpark figure, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, it might be $20,000, or what is the amount of money when the government, say the U.S. government program says, can you financially support a family? How much money are we actually looking at?
Well, I will be honest, it's not near that, but you got to remember, so the last 3 families I've done totally on my own. I mean, almost every single family I have been on the team and helped them with, and I can do it less than $5,000 a person. The biggest expense is you have to buy airplane tickets to come, so it depends on the season. But I've learned every trick in the book. I shouldn't even tell you all these things, but like I can get tickets a third off easily by going through this one broker. The most expensive thing is rent, but they can get jobs like right away. So that is not a problem. And you can get, like I said, our government, we can apply for Medicaid, cashes, food stamps. Around Sioux County, there's so many ways that you can get free things. Like we have a couple different like food banks. I can go there once a week and get food for this one and this. I mean, yes, the food is not as expensive. And we have different organizations called like Justice for All and other things. I can go there and get free clothes, free bedding. I mean, and like I said, I can just reach out to some people that are, that know the situation. I'll say, hey, I need this. Will you help me out? Yes, of course. And there's a business here. Like I said, we have enough of them here now that it works. I have a business that they use iPads. And after so much time, they wipe them clean and give them to me free. So every Ukrainian coming, I can get a free iPad that helps with translation. And I give it to all the schools and everything. So the schools have all that. Even the schools around here, they've hired specialists just to work with Ukrainians. So it's it's really working good. We're a well-oiled machine, let's put it that way, I feel like. But I've learned everything how to do it. So it does not require a lot of money. Really, it does not. If you have somebody that needs more, like with special needs or that kind of stuff, okay, maybe, but I've never hit the over $5,000 a person yet. So, but I've learned every trick. So
that's a reasonable amount of money. I mean, considering the amount of money the Ukraine community can raise, pulling together, it's not a goal that's unreachable. That's really, and also, like you said, the communities, when it pulls together, I've seen that. I used to live in a community in San Diego, and I don't know, Martha probably knows about the California fires, but Alina, California in the United States has just been ravaged by fires for years and years and years and years. And just when you don't think it's going to hit your area, one comes screaming through. And it's just amazing. Some people are untouched and some people are completely destroyed. But I remember too, we did the same thing. We had one of our local organizations, they would just send out emails and said, hey, who has extra hangers? We've got all these clothes, but we need hangers. So I went through and I was switching out all my tubular hangers to, it must be a woman thing, but we're really picky about our hangers. And so I'm like, oh, that can go into, donation. And I pulled all the hangers out of my closet and I actually picked up an extra clothes basket and I put them in there. And I said, whoever wants to come pick them up, they're sitting outside my door. And there was enough clothes hangers for an entire family in there, a mom and 2 kids. So of course it's always these little things that you don't think about, that when you start from zero, even when we first move out of the house when we're teenagers, our parents are giving stuff or we're just taking it. So, but I can't imagine, just starting completely over. I mean, I've known what it felt like because I've been through fires, to think that way, but luckily I've never had to replace anything. So sorry for the side story. Let me double check here for our viewer questions and see if we have any more. Everybody, we're doing great on time. And I encourage you to ask any questions that you want of the ladies. Let's see. So we don't have, let me look in the chat and see if we have any comments. We have people sharing recipes. So, Alina, so that's a question I had. When you came to the United States, tell us a fun story. Tell us something that either surprised you or maybe something your kids got involved in, something that was just like a moment of pure joy. Aside from I can finally relax, I can finally breathe. Just some experience that you had or maybe somewhere you went that was just like, wow. And let me say that by maybe it made you love the United States a little bit.
The very first thing which most of Ukrainians would notice from Americans, that they are always smiling. It's like number one difference. And it doesn't mean that Ukrainians are not smiling, but just we are more about personal conversation, emotions. But here in the store and on the street, and as we got into the little city, or even in Ukraine, we would call it a village because it's only 6,000 people, 8,000 with students. So everybody whether know each other, whether talk to each other. And for me, it was one of the interesting thing to notice that people were asking like, hey, how are you? And I was the only person who spoke English, so I was trying to communicate and respond, telling like, how am I? But at the same time, it was mostly like, hi, and nothing under this question because it's a cultural thing. Hi, how are you? And bye. And I'm like, are they interested in how we are? But then later on, we realized like, what does it mean? And now one more thing we noticed, the very first cultural difference is when people would come to us and bring some food or some items, people were very welcoming. Like they would help and trying to support with homey stuff. And they would bring something. I always would say like, come in. And for Ukraine, it's a kind of normal cultural thing when people are at your door you always will welcome them and have tea with them and just treat them with cookies or candies. And Marta knows this because for most of locals, it was something they never expected. They wanted to drop stuff and just go. And I'm like, come in. And then we realized later on, like they were never ready to stay a long time and drink tea. But it's a nice thing just to have two different points of world getting together. My kids were always having fun with English language learning. I mean, we were literally laughing lots of times just when they say something wrong or misspell, especially when they started school. I don't remember basically like examples, but just we laughed a lot when they said something weird. Yeah,
That's funny.
They now it's better, but in the beginning they would say something like, "Mama, я пішов into the kindergarten." So it's a combination of two languages. So they were pretty serious about that. Like they were talking like that. I'm like, okay. So with me, it's fine. I understood.
And you're right, because when I traveled to Eastern Europe, it is about, we're going to make a table. And I think that's sort of the translation. We're going to make a table, and all the little plates of food came out, and, the little, if you were drinking vodka, the little, things of vodka, but, and the juices, the homemade juices. And that's literally what it was. You sit for tea and you eat some chocolates, or, and which was very normal. It was very normal for people to just stop in. And I wasn't used to that. People stopping in, and Martha, you'd understand. You open your door. What do you want? Because if people come to your door in the United States, it's usually, if you're not expecting them, you usually expect them to ask you for something, not to just stop by and visit. And as far as the smiling part, I do notice that around different areas of the world too, that U.S. people are more smilers and greeters and hello, and we don't necessarily expect a conversation. But one question I had for you, as far as culturally, was, and this was explained to me more of a translation, not direct translation. But if someone said, "How are you?" it was more like, "How's your mood?" They're reading your face, because we can say, "I'm fine," and it might be a lie, because we're not. But if you say, "How's your mood?" "I'm happy," "I'm sad," it really tells you more about the person and how they're doing. Is that kind of how Ukrainian culture is more too, where you don't want to know the answer, like you say, "How are you?" You don't want just, "I'm fine." It's more, "How are you doing? How are you?"
We are more maybe honest in that meaning that when you ask "How are you?", which means for us, as far as translation says, like "How are you doing?", like what things are happening in your life, and how is your mood, and everything is included in this question. So I literally started telling how am I, like especially in the beginning when you combine in two worlds, like you wake up in the morning, you check up is everybody is alive, because back in Ukraine it's already evening, but here it's morning. So you're just on the phone with your family, and then afternoon when kids are back from school, you start living this life. And these are two realities you try to combine at the same times. So when people are asking, like, "How are you?", I might be okay with life here. I mean, everything is fine in general, but just things back home might be terrible, and I'm crying the whole morning. So how should I reply to that question? Like, am I fine? Am I not okay? So I was the one who was trying to explain these two realities, saying like, look, back home things are terrible, here I'm pretty okay, just this is what's happening. But this is the way we do in Ukraine. When people are talking to you and they are really interested in things happening in your life, you reply, and you reply pretty honestly. I know there are some surface answers like everything's okay, like not too bad. But if you don't want to share, you would say something like not too bad, but not I'm fine all the time. I'm fine. I'm not fine. I mean, I never was fine since 2022 February.
I can see. So Martha, how many teas and tables have you done with your Ukrainian friends since you started all of this?
Borschts.
There's so many differences. I really feel like I'm half Ukrainian now, because there's so many differences. Like in America, if I see Ukrainian, doesn't matter where you are in the grocery store, what you see them, you're going to stop and give them a hug and talk. United States, I feel like, I mean, we're Americans. We're too much of a hurry. We don't care. I mean, that's what I really feel like. I'm like, how are you? Fine, bye, walk away. You know what I mean? Ukrainians, you're going to give them a hug and you're going to stop. If you're going to stop, you better plan on stopping for a while. Even if, I mean, just have tea. And it's rude if we don't, right? So when I try to explain, just say if a church or a person is going to sponsor somebody, I try to explain the cultural things so we don't come off as rude. I'll say they're very hospitable, and they don't. If they want you to, if you stop at Ukraine's house, plan to stop and have tea, even if you are not thirsty. I just tell them I have a little bit of time and just stop and talk a little bit. But Americans we're too much of a hurry. We're not as hospitable. I feel like we need to step back, take time, and really care. If I'm going to ask somebody how they are, I've learned to really stop and ask them, how are you? Stop and have tea. And Ukrainians are very, if you're going to stop somewhere, if we go to the airport, always bring flowers. And in America, we don't do that kind of stuff. So I try to teach the people that sponsor them, some of the different cultural things, but I feel like I've been a better person now. I mean, not just a Christian, but a better person, because I'm like, I take time to actually care now and say, hey, how are you? And really listen, even to Americans now. Like if I ask them, I'm like, hey, how are you really? And tell me the truth. But that's also hard on me. I'm the person who, I'm fine. Even I could be deep down dying inside and I'm going to say I'm fine because I'm not going to share that. And I've learned, no, I mean, especially certain people now, especially Ukrainians, I'm like, I can really open up and share, but that's hard for me because I'm like, like tough macho kind of person. I'm like, I'm fine. No matter how bad life is, I'm fine. Right. That's what I feel like I have to say, but that's kind of how I grew up too. My husband's got leukemia. My youngest son's got a lot of health problems. But I've learned to share and open up because they do care. The Ukrainians really care too. But yeah, just sit and have tea and have coffee and take that time. We're too much of a hurry and life's going to be better if you take that time, slow down and care, right? And give them a hug. I hugged more people now than the last 2 years I hugged my whole life, which is good.
You're absolutely right. You're better for it. And the whole tea thing, take a sip and take one bite of a chocolate and your life will be better. It just don't say no. I learned the hard way and it was more about, oh, no, thank you. I was thinking, oh, don't go through the trouble for me, because Americans don't do that. And we feel like if we were to say someone, can you make me a cup of coffee? I'd be like, oh, how dare you ask that? But after I had those experiences and somebody says, how are you? I started responding, truth or a lie. And that, because it was the lie would be, oh, I'm fine. The truth would be, and I was surprised at the answers. Most people say, no, tell me the truth. Are you okay? And we have to, that's a whole different mindset to do. But I came back after my experiences as a better person too, and appreciating family more. And the whole, when people say, oh, I don't have time, it really affected me. Whereas before I would say, oh, that's okay. But when you don't have time for something, you're actually robbing yourself of an experience. That's at least my take on that. We have about 9 more minutes into this. Let me check and see if we have any more questions or comments in the. So we have a question. Okay, this is an excellent question. LWD Farm said, you may have covered this, but are Ukrainians that are migrating or move out of Ukraine planning to return to Ukraine? So, Alina, let's go with with what your plans would be for the future, your dreams. I'm sure you miss your country when the war's over, but would you like to go back, or do you want to stay in the United States? Where do you see your life after all this is over?
This is the second hardest question for me after how are you? I mean, I'm honest.
I know it's hard. And you know what? Let me just preface this by saying it's okay if you say, I miss my country, I want to go back, I want my kids to have that cultural experience, my family's still back there. There's no problem with that. You're literally saving your family by giving them a normal life here and wanting to go back. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'll maybe smooth the road there.
I'll explain my answer. It's definitely we do miss Ukraine. Definitely we love our country. Definitely we have our families back there. Definitely we have our life back there. I mean, roots back there. And I don't know any Ukrainian who would say, oh, I don't care. I don't like to be back. Like, I don't have anything left there. It's not true. I mean, maybe there are some individuals, but I don't know those. Most of Ukrainians, they do have, it's like you are a tree and you are taken with the roots, but you never ever can feel home anywhere beside the place you were born. At the same time, the war is still there and the war is still going on and nobody knows what happens tomorrow. So this gives the hardest thoughts when you don't know what will happen next. How can you plan your life in the future? So what we've learned from the war, at least our family learned, we do not plan anymore certain plans as we used to do before, because whenever you plan, you are not sure these plans will become true. It doesn't mean that we don't plan at all, but just you don't rely on your plans anymore. It's hard to describe, but just you live today the life you can, as much as you can fully live. What means fully? You try to combine these two lives and you still do stuff there back home. I mean, donate and help and connect with the people you care, connect with the people whom you donate to, and then get to know about those who are at the front lines, you know, personally. But at the same time, you are here and you still have to raise your children, for example, in our case. And that's why the planning looks so weird since 2022. The planning looks different. And that's why perspectives for the future, nobody knows what will happen in a year in US, in Ukraine, back there home. I have no answer for that question to myself, and I have no answer to you, unfortunately.
No,
Sorry.
and I for the first time in my life, I think probably since the pandemic, and we're on the other side of that, but I used to plan a lot, you know, a trip a year down the road, or if something came up, and I find myself living more day to day too, like that. Martha, how about you? What do you see? It's a little different question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? Let's hypothetically say the war ends in 2 more years. We're doing a hypothetical here. Where do you see yourself in like 5 years? Your hopes and your dreams.
Well, I can try to answer, like, the Ukrainians that are here that we talk to a lot. Oh, so many people ask them that. What do you want to do? They say the same thing, but a lot of them have nothing to go back to. They're like, they said, even if the war ended today, I couldn't go back because my house was destroyed. The jobs, there's no way to, even if they could go back. I mean, what kind of job could they have? There's the school, the hospitals are bombed. A lot of them that are all from the east, there's nothing to go back to. It's going to take so long to rebuild all that. And so with the humanitarian parole, they get 2 years here and then they're technically supposed to go back. But now our government changed something called TPS, so temporary parole status, so they can stay longer. But our government has to be constantly changing things because what's going to happen the next, how many years? Will they be able to go back? How are they going to rebuild? So a lot of them, they don't have a clue. They live day by day. But most of them, I'd say a lot of them here say there is no future to go back to. So that's what they kind of are living at right now.
The statistics that we hear about rebuilding, even a year ago, it was a 10-year rebuilding process. And because, unfortunately, it's scorched earth, that's what you probably heard those words, where it's not just, bombing military. It's destroying everything in your path. So there is nothing. And also, I've heard stories, there has been rebuilding, and people they look at it and they're like, yeah, you rebuilt my apartment building, or you repaired it, but the memories are so bad. I don't think I want to go live there again. There's so many dynamics. And then the dam that was exploded, all of that land, it's mind numbing, the amount of either rebuilding, rehabilitation. It's just, I guess it really is just a what can we do from day to day? Because if you think so far out, and that's more of a governmental community thing, what they can do on the large scale. So no, I agree on that. So we're going to give our parting thoughts here. I'll go first, and then we'll go to Martha. And Alina, you get to have the last say and say goodbye to our audience. So I want to let me double check and make sure that I'm caught up with our donations and everything here. And we are. So I told you, ladies, that we have an amazing team behind us on this channel. So I want to thank the team who's been supporting us today. Shayna Caldwell is actually doing what I usually do in the Shills account. I want to thank all of the viewers who took their time to listen to us and learn about these ladies' stories. And hopefully you'll pass it on and you'll tell other people to watch the video, because there's a lot more to come from this. I'm so excited. And I want to thank Dick Dawson, our producer, the god of the Shills. And we have another channel owner, Dunk. He's done all the graphics for him. I don't feel like we give him enough credit. So just some amazing people supporting us. And again, our NAFO fundraiser, we're almost closing that out. I encourage Martha, we are going to talk about how we can donate and get some fund going for her sister to support her. We want to get them on it. Anybody you guys can bring. Alina's also offered to do translation for us if needed. I'm going to take you up on that. So I think the future looks really, really bright for bringing amazing people into this program. Now, Martha, I'm going to go to you for let's put it like this. What would you like our audience to remember most of all from today after our conversation or going forward?
Oh man. I don't know. Thank you for having us on, but just remember these people, if you come across any of them, they really, if you do ask them how they're doing, stop and talk, have tea with them, but just care. You know what I mean? There's so many more that want to come and that need help, whether they come here or we can help them over there, or help Miranda to help them. It doesn't matter. Just, be in prayer for them, but just stop and talk. I guess I don't know.
That's perfect advice. Something simple to make someone's life better just in one moment. All right, Alina, what would you like our listeners to remember about you?
I will start with words of thankfulness for the invitation, because for me it's an honor to share my story and being invited. And knowing Martha and knowing our angels, the things I would like people to remember from this video stream: you can become an angel, a small one or a big one, but everybody can make a difference. The war is still there. The wars keep going and bringing more destruction. Even the news are becoming less and less. But just thinking of what can I do to make a difference, and the answer is always you can do something at least. So please keep this in mind, that you can become an angel to someone from Ukraine, back there or here. And thanks to everybody who is an angel to so many Ukrainians here in US and all over the world. We appreciate everybody who is our personal angels. Thanks.
And that's a wrap. See you later, everybody.
Yeah, see you.